Okay, so I've recently picked up a relatively cheap vacuum sealing machine. Um, Not a particularly great one based on the pressure needed to put those down, but I enjoy cheese, and sometimes I buy an expensive piece of cheese and then I do a crap job wrapping it with saran wrap and or a Ziploc bag, and it just gets old throwing out like because I enjoy eating just plain cheese, and if it's all oxidized and shit, it's really not quite as good. So I tend to toss it out a bit. So I figure this will save some money over time, kind of gadgety. Um, but it doesn't really. So it seals, but it doesn't seal quite in the way that I want. If you're a fan of My Virgin Kitchen on YouTube, you'll probably be able to guess. But I just want to improve how this thing seals. So I did cheat and have a quick look in here before, just to check if it was at all viable. This thing goes together pretty simply, just a bunch of screws. So these screws are all the same length. You don't need to worry about remembering where they go. They're just a bunch of self-tapping plastic ones. Also, I found a tiny container that will work. So if we go ahead and pop this open, there's not a whole lot going on. So something nice about this is that the actual AC connection on this doesn't get passed through until both of these are locked down. So if you push them both down and lock them, that actually allows the device to power on. If you don't have both sides locked, the entire board is powered off. So that's a pretty neat little safety feature. This side does tend to pop off a fair bit easier than the other side. They could have put like a second piece here on this side to stop that popping off, but also, you know, you're not meant to be taking this thing apart like I am. So I would like to have power cord separate. Okay, no, that's really in there. So we'll just try and get as much slack as we can, I guess. And then we can go ahead and disconnect the vacuum tube, because we don't really need it right now. Okay, so it is the near future, and this is one of those projects that ended up being deceptively complicated, not because it's complex, but just because it had a couple things that messed up with my sort of thought process, especially since I'm super low on sleep. The main important thing, these sort of boards inside at least this specific food saver, and probably also quite a lot of other vacuum sealers, most of the circuitry on this runs at 32 volts. Now there is a couple spots where you can find 5 volts, like on capacitors or on this connector right here. But the voltage regulator that actually runs the processor on the back of this is super underpowered. It won't even power an Arduino. And that really caused a bunch of, like, just a huge pain in the ass. So then I tried to find another source. I tried to use the 12 volt voltage regulator. And as you can probably see from the crack in it, that didn't really work out as planned. So I'll just throw that away. So I'm gonna cut to the explanation. So the goal of this project was to put a DF Player Mini. This is a little micro SD card based MP3 player. And I wanted to put this into the vacuum sealer. That way, when a certain thing happens, I can trigger audio sound effects. Now, I'm only concerned about one thing happening. So that's just playing one song. So what I need to do is I need to monitor when it actually turns on the heating element for the ceiling section. And when it does that, I need to send 2 signals to this pin here where the green wire is on the DF Player Mini. I need to send a short pulse to tell it to start playing, and then I need to send a long pulse for a couple seconds. I have like set to 4 seconds or 5 seconds to increase the volume all the way. And then that basically plays this, starts playing the music, cranks the volume up on it, and I've also balanced the sound file on Audacity so that it's not all tinny and shit. And I've also added about 5 minutes of extra length in the back. So to get power, I'm using this little cool, tiny voltage regulator thing, which takes 100 to 240 volts input, and pops out 9 volts. So that's a nice universal multi-voltage thing. It'll work on 240 volts. Yeah, that's pretty good. The other thing is that that 5-minute timer on that 5 minutes of blank audio. What I can do is I can plug this in, and because I don't know how I'm cutting up this mess of audio, you can see that the Arduino is powered right now. I'm not quite sure why it reset there. Well, you can see the Arduino is powered. So the way this thing works is it has these 2 switches here, and these are interlocks for the 120 volts. So the 120 volts comes in this line, goes through the 2 switches, out through the brown wire. So if you undo that, it resets the whole circuit. You power it back up, and it will reset. So it will... You're not going to have this closed for more than 5 minutes after you seal a bag. So the 5 minutes of blank audio playing is perfectly acceptable, because then you're going to disconnect it, pop it out, put a new bag in, start sealing it. And this waits a couple seconds for all the voltages to equalize. So I have 2 lines going off the Arduino to the actual circuit board here. One of them is a ground, so I have a common ground. And then the second one is going into a voltage divider that I set up with like a 91K and 9K resistor on the top there. That's measuring one of the pins on the relay. The voltage divider, like the resistance on the 2 resistors, isn't really important. You just make the voltage divider, you do a serial output, you measure what it reads when the thing is off, and you measure what it reads when it's on. So I know when the relay is triggered. And then I can basically tell the Arduino to trigger that short pulse and the long pulse of audio. So what I can do now, I'm going to mute the audio, but I'm going to press the button to seal it, which will activate this, which is actually a DC heating strip, it looks like. You'll see a red light go on here, and then very shortly after you'll see a red light here. And so I'm going to turn off the audio, but just to demonstrate that it works. Okay, so the audio just stopped. It took, a little longer than that. I can work with the timings and stuff, and then you take your bag out, blah, 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 it resets it, and then you're set to go again. So this is in a functional, if not messy, state. So we're going to finally put it together and finish up this project, because holy hell, this thing really did take a lot longer than I thought it would. I do wish I had a smaller speaker. This is just what I was able to scavenge from an old clock radio that I had laying around. But we're going to start actually tidying this stuff up. I mean, within reason, because let's face it, it's going to be a mess either way. If I do build another one of these for someone in the United Kingdom who might appreciate it, just like for the very stupid joke that it is, then I will do a better job of the wiring. Just, having not so much slack around everywhere. So yeah, so basically we have power and ground for the DF player, and then this is the switched ground from pin number 3 on the Arduino. frankly, you know what? There's plenty of room in this thing. I'm not going to worry too much about stuff in the way. Oh, God. So one of the tricks is that I would like to have the SD card accessible out the back. Oh yeah, so it's just sort of like a no-name brand. Well, not sort of. It's well reviewed on Amazon. I highly doubt all of those specs on the front of it are real, but it seems to be a decent budget SD card. 8 gigs is far too much for what I need, but that's the smallest reasonably priced size that would arrive quickly. So, in terms of figuring out space for everything, I'm going to go ahead and tuck these wires down here. So this is coming off of here into the AC side of the little transformer step-down converter here. Go ahead and pop a little bit of very hot glue down there. Let's go ahead and hook our hose back up too. Okay, let's just make sure that still powers up. There's nothing weird going on with the wiring. That looks good. So we can finally move on to actually trying to mount the speaker and the F player in here. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off. A smaller speaker would definitely be good, but I think I might be able to fit this one right here. Actually, it might interfere with that transformer, because there are a couple components there that do get a bit warm. I don't want to block them off too much. Okay, much X-Acto knife carving later. I do have this set up so that the SD card can just barely be accessed out there. So now I need to hook these wires in place. Oh God, and also get it lined up. This is going to be slightly tricky, I think. Okay, that won't have made for a very interesting video, but we should now be good to plug this in. Let's get the test before we start gluing stuff together. Find and press the seal button. That works. Okay, I'm going to put some hot glue along there. Very quickly. Okay. Alright, so there's a little bit in there right now. It's just barely holding it. I'm going to add a bit more right there. I'm going to want a little bit right here. I don't want to get into the actual SD card mechanism and ruin it. Yeah, I don't have enough slack on those cables. I've also scratched the shit out of this thing on my workbench. I've really ruined it. Okay. And some glue there. I'm sure I can polish that up with some plastics, but yeah, that edge got all scraped up like crazy. It's not high quality plastic. Okay. So now, what I need is to see oh God. Let's see how that fits in there. That does seem like it would just fit. I'm going to pull those off because they're warping in a bit. I think the speaker out the bottom grill is going to work, actually. I'm going to put it off to the left slightly. I'm going to give it a little bit of hot glue over here. And I guess we'll just hope that that's enough to hold it well. I mean, this thing isn't really going to get dropped or anything, I don't think. Oh, God. Okay, let's add some more in. Fortunately, the low temp on this gun doesn't really work well, so I can't, like, build up bridges with the hot glue very easily. Okay, so that's firming up. I'm gonna go ahead, pop this down. And we can now put our screws back in. I did give it a quick test one more time, just to be sure. Okay, so that should be it. We have our SD card. Yep, that lets me tweak the length of the song or change it, whatever I want to do. Go ahead and plug in. If we pop down, I can just do a test. Okay, the vacuum works. I'm gonna do a test for me. Okay, I was worried I wouldn't like it as much as I thought I would because I'm so fucking tired. But, I mean, it's not bad. Okay, so I'm gonna get something to vacuum seal. Okay, so here we have like a coffee ground covered cheese. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up. Make sure there's loads of air in there. And then, let's go ahead and close it. So it does take a couple seconds to get going. But now, we should just be able to vacuum and seal. And this thing will seal much better than it did before. Okay, so with a new bag that will seal much better than before. Wow, this is really too small for most things. We can go ahead and... I think the bigger bags are actually better because you can cut and reseal them, but there's only so often you want to do that. Okay, so now we will vacuum and seal, and this will seal much better than it did before in a stupid, jokey way. Okay, I think I'm going to cut it down so that there's only 2 in there. But when it seals, it also seals. Alright. That's my stupid joke idea satisfied. That's a vacuum-packed piece of cheese. Hopefully this is interesting. I can edit it down into something that's half decent. Barry Lewis, if you want to send me a vacuum backpacking thing, I will find a step-up converter and I will make you one of these. And then I'll find a way to get it back to you. I don't know how much shipping back and forth to the UK would cost. Probably not great, but yeah.